Lighten7 is still a relatively obscure company as far as the flashlight industry is concerned, but they're hoping to change that soon with some, I guess, exciting products, in which case that would be the Elite S1A is their most recent product. Now the reason why I have so many lights here is because I did want to highlight the compactness of this light. So I did review 3 of their products previously, with the largest one being their 2-cell thrower, their Max L2A. Okay, and then also what are fairly large lights for single cell 18650 size, which is the Elite M1A on my left hand here and the Elite M1B. Now getting into, I guess, perhaps a more traditional size light, although still with a turbo head, this is Nightwalker's 550N3, recently launched, but as you can see, you know, Lighten7's lights previously has still tend to be on the pretty large side. Right. Now going down the scale, we now have the Elite S1A by comparison to the 550N3, and as you can see, it is a fairly compact light. And then finally, by comparison, we have Xenos S3A, which was a ultra compact single cell 18650 size light. And you see the S1A overall just a bit larger. Obviously this is again pretty minimalistic as it comes to the outer shell, just pretty much a tube, a rare clicky tail cap to even cut off a few millimeters in size. So again, overall very compact light. Now before we dive into light, it did arrive in this what they call the Echo packaging. It features what is potentially a finalized label, though this is not quite sticker form yet. It's really more of a tape on, I guess, a printed out white paper. It does feature the specs. This light does utilize a XML U2 emitter hitting a max of 700 lumens. I did confirm, I think, 718 on my PVC-LMD, and as well as the runtime 1.4 hours on that. Now the lowest level I think here is about 20 lumens, although it stays 30 here. I believe I saw 20 elsewhere, but overall the spacing is pretty well thought out, pretty evenly spaced, although I would have liked a lower low, but we'll get into that in a second here. Now, opening up the package, it did come with ample foam cushioning. The light itself came in this. There's the instruction spec sheets, and again confirming the runtime on a I think Panasonic 3100 milliamp hour battery, and that's what I also did confirm the runtime on as well. Comes with a pretty slim holster, although this particular one doesn't have an additional quick release button, so one must always remove a belt and loop it through in order to attach it. Now the other accessories included were a short lanyard, spare O-rings, and what is actually increasingly rare these days is it did actually come with a spare glass, as well as the corresponding oil ring. Oh, sorry, and there is also a tail clip as well. Now, the Echo packaging is in contrast to if one purchases a kit form. I guess they're biking kits. There's an attachment for the light onto the bike itself. It would, in that case, come in this presentation box. This is actually for the Elite M1A, but the S1A, again, in the bike kit with the battery and chargers, would come in this box. Okay, now digging into the light itself. Again, I was pretty impressed with the overall size as well as, you know, the output. I think it is probably one of the more powerful, at least in this form, light that I have. And again, I did verify the lumens output to be around 718. It does feature a removable stainless steel bezel, and as you can see, there is a orange peel reflector in there, so that does balance out the beam between throw and flood. In this case, I'm actually going to use this printed out protractor to help the camera focus so I don't have to grab other objects in here. Okay, so checking out the beam, again, it's not a super thrower, so it does have a very smooth transition from the hotspot into this fill. I'm just going to move this for a second. Now, the rear switch is a forward clicky, right? So it does allow momentary use. So I'm going to blind you for a second here. right? And then once depressed, it's just like a master on off switch. If that switch is off, this side switch will not function. This side switch controls the mode change. So you have high, it will always come on in high, then it will cycle to medium, and then low. Now at any one point, if you double click on the switch, it will access strobe. And this is overall a relatively slow strobe. I've never got my oscilloscope set up, so I don't really know the frequency, but again, it's a fairly slow strobe. Now, one thing I did notice about this particular switch is that if you cycle through the levels a bit too fast, it will misinterpret that as you want strobe. So let's just say I'm going high, medium, low. It would go into strobe. I would have actually preferred a tightening of the strobe axis, meaning like 2 really quick clicks versus, you know, again, like if I wanted to cycle quickly through the modes, it would access the strobe. Okay. Now, beam profile wise, this is also one of the advantages of having this printed out protractor here. Say overall the flood is about roughly 10, 20, 30, 40, about 80 degrees spread roughly. And the hotspot itself, I would say, is about 30 degrees or so, 30, 35 degrees. Okay, get this light back on. Digging back into the main light, the head is removable. And you will see that there is a little flat nodule there, so this can accept flat top batteries. And then the tail cap itself, also removable. So I suppose if one had a needle nose plier, you could actually disassemble that and get into the innards of the switch, or perhaps switch out the tail cap boot if one wanted to. There is an attachment point for the lanyard here on one side, although I would assume that depending on the type it is, it may interfere. Well, actually, let me point this out. The rubber boot does stick out so that it does not sit perfectly flat, right? It's actually protruding a little bit, so you cannot actually tail stand this. So as you can see, this is wobbling already. So this light is actually not tail standable. Now, while the tube, the threads are identical, I've noticed like one in the head side is actually a little bit longer. So even though you could reverse it, it actually doesn't assemble properly. Now this finishing is HA3 anodization. It is, as you can see, it's a shiny finish. Overall, I did not detect any mismatching between the anodization, and I also did not notice any missing between the grooves, which are actually common problems during the anodization process. Now, one thing I did want to highlight is that because it is a very compact light, a XR 18700, this one's a 2600 milliamp battery, actually would not fit. Even though I was able to thread this on, but it actually wasn't able to thread on fully. There is an extra gap there, and because of that, the light will not function. So let's get the head tightened all the way in, and then with this on, screw down. Again, it won't function. It's just a bit longer. I think these batteries are 69.2 millimeters, whereas the regular glass 3100s were, I think, around 68.3 millimeters. It's amazing what 1 millimeter can make a difference. So you can see the ready glass sits just beneath the toe cap tube. And again, with that installed, this light does function perfectly with it. Now, because the threads are anodized, you can lock out the light by twisting probably 1/16 of a turn or so. So that way, when you're storing it, accessing either switch won't invoke the light. Now, there isn't a standby mode, so you can't simply shut off the light via the side switch. It always must shut off via the rear forward click key. So again, overall, I've been very impressed with the size. I figured I do remember seeing a fellow Flashaholics Zebralight SC600, and I think this is comparable in size, maybe just a little bit bigger. But again, confirmed the 700 lumens, it should give that pretty good competition, although of course the UI is a bit different, even though both feature a side switch. Okay, so again, that concludes this review Thanks again for watching, and as part of FTC disclosures, this light was provided by Lighten7 for review. Cheers.